Good evening, and welcome back to Sleep with Stories. Tonight, wherever you are listening from, let everything else fall away. The day is behind you now. The noise, the movement, the endless demands, all of it can rest until morning. Right now, there is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be, only this. So settle in, let your body grow heavy and still, and allow your breathing to slow. You have been here before. You know this place, beyond the waking world, past the edges of ordinary nights. There stands an ancient library, quiet, waiting, alive in its own gentle way. And Elias, our traveler, is already inside. But tonight, he has found something new. A door he never noticed. A soft golden light drifting from somewhere deep within. And beyond it, a river still, ancient, endless, covered in thousands of floating lanterns, each one carrying a light that refused to go out. Take one last slow breath and follow him in. The river is waiting. The library was quiet tonight, quieter than usual. Elias walked slowly through one of the older corridors, the kind where the shelves leaned slightly inward, as though the books were listening to one another in the dark. His lantern cast a warm circle of light around him. The stone floor was cool beneath his feet, and somewhere far above, through the high arched windows, the moon hung full and patient in the sky. He had walked this particular corridor before, many times, but tonight, something was different. At the very end of the passage, where the corridor usually met a plain stone wall, there was a door, old, wooden, slightly ajar. A thin line of golden light pressed through the gap. Elias stopped. He stood there for a long moment, simply looking at it. The door had not been there yesterday. He was certain of that. And yet, it did not feel wrong. It did not feel frightening. It felt expected, as though the library had been waiting for the right evening to show it to him. He reached out slowly and pushed it open. The air that greeted him was different from the library's air, warmer, softer, carrying something faint, like rain on stone or candle smoke drifting over still water. He stepped through, and the corridor disappeared behind him. Before him now stretched something vast and open, impossible within the walls of any building. A riverbank, ancient stone beneath his feet, smooth and worn by centuries of quiet footsteps. And there, just below where he stood, a river, wide and dark and perfectly still. Its surface did not ripple. It did not rush. It simply moved slowly, gently, as though it had all the time in the world. And upon that surface, lanterns, hundreds of them at first glance, then thousands, stretching further than the eye could follow, each one small, each one glowing. Some burned bright gold, some pale blue, some a deep and steady amber, and some barely glowing at all. Elias knelt at the edge of the bank and looked down at the nearest lantern. Inside its paper walls, he could see something moving. Not a flame exactly, something softer than that. He reached out and let his fingers rest gently against its surface. And in that moment, without any words, without any sound, he understood this was not just a river, and these were not just lanterns. He was still kneeling at the edge of the bank, still looking at the lanterns, when he heard a sound behind him. Not footsteps exactly, more like the soft movement of cloth over stone. He turned. An old woman stood a few feet away. She was small and unhurried, wrapped in a dark coat that seemed to absorb the light around its edges. Her hair was silver and loosely gathered. Her eyes were the color of river water at dusk, gray and quiet and very, very deep. She was watching him with an expression that held no surprise, as though she had expected him, as though she had been expecting him for some time. "You touched one," she said. Her voice was low and even, not unkind. Elias stood slowly. "I did not mean to disturb anything." "You did not disturb anything." She moved to stand beside him and looked out at the river. "It means the river wanted you to understand." Elias followed her gaze. The lanterns drifted past, slow and silent, each one burning at its own quiet pace. "What is this place?" he asked. She was quiet for a moment before she answered. "A river of sleeping souls," she said simply. "Every person who closes their eyes tonight, every person who surrenders the day and lets themselves drift, sends a light here." She gestured slowly at the lanterns. "Each one is a night's rest. Each one is a dreaming mind. Each one carries something that belongs only to the person it came from." Elias looked out at the thousands of lights moving gently on the dark water. He had never imagined there were so many. "And you," he said carefully, "you watch over them." "I have watched over them for a very long time," she said. She did not say how long. She did not need to. Her name, she told him, was Nara. She had come to the river the same way he had come tonight, through a door that had not been there the night before, through a corridor that had decided she was ready. That had been many years ago. She did not seem troubled by it. "The river asks for nothing," she said, as they walked slowly along the bank. "It does not judge the person who sends a lantern. It does not question whether their dreams are worthy or their worries too small. She paused beside a lantern that burned with a particularly steady gold. Every light belongs here. Every rest is sacred. The river simply carries them, keeps them safe through the dark hours, and returns them quietly with the morning. Elias watched the gold lantern drift past. He thought about all the people, right now, in this very moment, lying in their beds in the sleeping world above. He thought about the quiet weight of closed eyes, the trust that sleep required, the way a person had to let go of everything, every thought, every worry, every held breath, before the night could truly receive them. It was, he realized, a kind of courage, a gentle courage that most people never recognized in themselves. What about those ones? He said quietly. He was looking further down the bank, where the light changed, where the lanterns burned lower, where some barely glowed at all. Nara followed his gaze. Her expression did not change, but something in it softened. "Come," she said, and she led him toward the dim ones. The dim section of the river was quieter, not in sound. The whole river was quiet, but in the way light behaves when it is uncertain of itself. The lanterns here moved the same as the others. The water carried them with the same gentle patience, but their glow was thin, pale, like a candle burning in a room with too many open windows. Some flickered, some were nearly dark. Elias walked slowly beside Nara, his eyes moving from one to the next. "What happened to them?" he asked. "Nothing happened to them," she said. "They are simply tired." She stopped beside a lantern that burned a dull and restless amber. "This one belongs to a woman who has not slept deeply in many months. She lies down each night and closes her eyes, but her mind will not follow. It keeps moving, keeps returning to things she cannot change." Elias looked at the amber light. It trembled slightly as it drifted, as though it were trying. "And this one," Nara said, moving a little further along the bank. This lantern was almost white, barely there. "A man who lives alone. He sleeps, but he does not rest. There is a difference. Sleep without rest is like a room with no warmth in it. The body lies down, but nothing inside him lets go." Elias crouched beside the pale lantern. He did not touch it. He only looked, and even without touching it, he felt something, a heaviness that was not his own, a quietness that had gone on too long. He stood again. They continued walking. Nara showed him others. A young woman whose lantern flickered rapidly, her dreams full of movement and noise, and no stillness at all. An old man whose light had been dim for so long, the paper of his lantern had grown thin. A child whose lantern was small and dark blue and barely moving, drifting slightly apart from the others as though it did not know it belonged. Elias stopped at the child's lantern for a long time. "Can anything be done?" he asked. Nara looked at him steadily. "That is why the river brought you here," she said. She reached into the folds of her coat and produced something small, a single unlit lantern, plain paper, empty of light. She held it out to him. "The river does not heal on its own," she said. "It carries, it keeps. But sometimes a light needs something more than water and patience." Elias took the lantern carefully in both hands. It was lighter than he expected, almost weightless. "What do I do?" he asked. Nara looked at the dim lanterns on the river. "You already know," she said quietly. And when Elias looked down at the small paper lantern in his hands, he found somehow that she was right. He was not sure how long they walked. Time moved differently along the river. It did not press forward the way it did in the waking world. It did not pull at him or remind him of things left undone. It simply flowed, the way the water flowed, without urgency, without end. At some point, Nara fell a few steps behind him, and Elias found himself walking alone at the edge of the bank. The lanterns drifted past, hundreds of them, thousands, and as he walked, he began to notice something. The river was making a sound, not the sound of water exactly. It was beneath that, underneath the gentle movement of the current and the soft drift of the lanterns, a low, continuous sound, like breathing, like many people breathing at once, slowly, steadily, in the deep hours of the night. Elias stopped walking. He closed his eyes and listened, and the sound grew clearer. It was not just breathing. There were voices in it, not words at first, only tones, low and soft, and layered over one another the way music is layered, each voice carrying its own note, its own weight, its own particular kind of quiet. But then, gradually, words began to form, not spoken to him exactly, more like thoughts that had been set down gently beside him, left for him to find. "I am so tired. I have been tired for so long. I just want one night of real rest. I just want to stop thinking for a little while." Elias opened his eyes. The lanterns moved past him as before, but he heard them differently now. Each one was not just a light. Each one was a person, a whole person, with a whole life, with a whole weight of days behind them. And each one tonight had closed their eyes and trusted the dark to hold them. He felt the river then, in a way he had not expected, not as a place, as a presence, something ancient and unhurried that had been here since the first person ever closed their eyes against the night and hoped for rest. It had no voice of its own, but it held every voice that had ever been given to it, and it kept them without judgment, without preference, without forgetting. Elias stood at the bank for a long time. The water moved below him. The lanterns drifted on, and somewhere behind him, he heard Nara's quiet footsteps returning. "You heard it," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," he said. She stood beside him and looked out at the river. "Most people never know this place exists," she said. "They give their light to the river every night without knowing. They sleep and they dream and they wake again. And the river has kept them through all of it." She paused. "But some nights, the river needs a witness." Elias looked at her. "Someone who can see it," she continued. "Someone who understands what it carries. Someone who can sit with it for a little while and simply be grateful." The lanterns drifted past them both, gold and blue and amber and pale white, each one a life, each one a night of trust. Elias looked down at the small unlit lantern, still resting in his hands. It felt warmer now than it had before, as though something inside it was beginning, very quietly, to wake. Nara did not explain what to do. She simply walked back toward the dim lanterns, and Elias followed. They stopped at the first one, the woman who could not quiet her mind, the amber light that trembled as it drifted. Nara crouched beside the bank and waited. Elias crouched beside her. He looked at the lantern for a long moment. He thought about the woman inside it, not her face or her name. He did not know those things, but the feeling of her, the particular exhaustion of a mind that would not stop moving, the way a person could lie in a dark room with their eyes closed and still be nowhere near sleep. He knew that feeling. Most people did. He reached out slowly and rested one hand on the surface of the lantern. He did not push anything into it. He did not try to fix anything. He only stayed quietly, patiently, the way you might sit beside someone who is struggling without offering words. Because words are not what is needed. Only presence, only the simple fact of not being alone. The lantern trembled once beneath his hand, and then slowly steadied. The amber deepened, not dramatically, not all at once, but the flickering stopped, and the light, though still soft, burned more evenly than before. Elias lifted his hand. The lantern drifted on. He watched it go. Nara said nothing. She only moved to the next one. They worked slowly through the dim section of the river, lantern by lantern. Each one asked, for something slightly different. Some needed only stillness, a hand held close, a moment of quiet attention, and they steadied on their own. Some needed longer. The old man's pale lantern, the one that had been dim for so long its paper had grown thin, that one asked for more than a moment. Elias sat beside it for a long time, long enough that he lost track of where in the night they were, long enough that his knees ached against the cold stone of the bank. But he did not move. He stayed until the light shifted, until the thin, pale glow found something deeper in itself and held it. It would not burn gold tonight. It had been too long, but it burned warmer than before. That was enough. The child's lantern was last, the small dark blue one that had drifted slightly apart from the others. Elias did not crouch this time. He lay down on his stomach at the edge of the bank so that he was level with it, so that if the lantern had eyes, it would have seen him looking directly at it rather than down at it. He was not sure why he did it that way. It simply seemed right. He reached out and cupped both hands loosely around the small blue lantern without touching it, just surrounding it gently, the way you might shelter a flame from the wind. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lantern drifted, almost imperceptibly, toward his hands, as though it recognized something, as though, even in the deep and wordless dark of a child's sleep, some part of it understood that it was not alone. The blue deepened, a steady, soft, deep blue, like the sky at the very last moment before full dark, when there is still just enough light to feel safe. Elias stayed until it drifted gently back among the other lanterns, until it moved without hesitation, until it belonged. Then he sat up slowly and looked out at the river. The dim section was not entirely dark anymore. It was not bright. It would never all be bright at once, but there were more steady lights among it than before, more lights that burned without trembling, more lights that drifted with something like ease. Nara stood beside him. She was looking at the river too. "You did not try to fix them," she said quietly. "No," Elias said. "Good," she said. "They were never broken." They sat together for a while after that, on the stone bank, with the river moving slowly before them, and the lanterns drifting past in their hundreds. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing that needed saying. The river filled the silence in its own way, that low, continuous sound beneath the water. All those breathing lives carried gently through the dark. After some time, Nara reached into her coat again. She produced another lantern, but this one was different from the others. It was not plain paper. Its surface had a faint texture to it, like the cover of a very old book, and it glowed not with the uncertain light of something struggling, nor with the steady brightness of something at ease, but with a warm and particular gold that Elias did not recognize from any of the other lanterns he had seen tonight. She held it out to him. He did not take it immediately. He only looked at it. "Whose is this?" he asked. "You already know," Nara said. And he did, the same way he had known what to do with the dim lanterns, the same wordless knowing that the river seemed to give without being asked. He took it carefully. It was warm in his hands, warmer than any of the others. He turned it slowly and looked into its light, and there, inside the golden glow, he saw things, not in clear images, more the way memory works, the way a feeling can carry a whole place inside it without showing you the place directly. He saw the library, the long corridors, and the high shelves, and the lanterns that drifted through the dark halls without any wind to move them. He saw the doorway he had stepped through tonight, the thin line of gold that had called him here. He saw the faces of people he had never met, the woman who could not quiet her mind, the old man who slept without resting, the child drifting apart from the others, and he felt, without understanding why, that he knew them, that something in him recognized something in them. He saw the river, and he saw himself sitting beside it, small against the vastness of it, and yet not small in the way that made a person feel lost, small in the way that made a person feel held. He looked up from the lantern. The river moved before him. The lanterns drifted on. "I never knew I had one," he said quietly. "Most people don't," Nara said. "They give their light to the river each night and never see it from the outside, never understand what it is they are trusting the dark to carry." She looked at the lantern in his hands. "But yours has been on this river for a long time, Elias. Every night you have come to the library. Every night you have sat among the books and let the quiet hold you. Every night you have given something to the dark without asking for it back." She paused. "That is what this light is made of." Elias looked down at the lantern again. It burned steadily in his hands, not brilliantly, not with the blinding brightness of something trying to be seen, just warmly, consistently, the way a thing burns when it is simply being what it is. He held it for a long time. Then, gently, he lowered it to the surface of the water and let it go. It drifted out to join the others, moving slowly at first, then finding the current, then settling into the long procession of lights that stretched further than the eye could follow. Elias watched until he could no longer tell which one was his. He found he did not mind. It seemed right that it should be that way, that his light should move among the others, indistinguishable, equally kept, equally carried, one light among thousands, each one enough. After a while, the river began to change, not dramatically, not all at once, but Elias noticed it the way you notice the quality of light shifting in the hour before dawn. A gradual thing, a gentle thing, the kind of change that has been happening for some time before you become aware of it. The lanterns were moving more slowly now. The current had quieted. Even the low sound beneath the water, that layered breathing of 1,000 sleeping souls, had deepened, grown softer, as though the night had reached its most restful hour, and everything in it had finally, fully let go. Elias stood. His body felt heavy in the way that follows something meaningful, not tired exactly, settled, the way a person feels after sitting beside a fire for a long time, when the warmth has moved all the way through them. Nara stood beside him. She was looking at the river still. She seemed always to be looking at the river, as though it were something that could never be looked at long enough. Will I find this place again? Elias asked. She considered the question carefully. The library shows people what they are ready to see, she said. You found the door tonight because something in you was ready to find it. She paused. Whether it shows you this door again, that is not something I can tell you. The library does not make promises. It only opens. Elias nodded slowly. He looked out at the lanterns one last time. Thousands of them, drifting on, each one a person resting somewhere in the world above, each one a life being carried through the dark by something ancient and patient, and entirely without condition. He thought about all the nights he had slept without knowing this place existed, all the mornings he had woken without understanding what had held him. He felt, standing there at the edge of the river, a gratitude so quiet it had no words for itself, only the feeling, only the warmth of it, sitting somewhere behind his ribs. He turned from the river. The doorway was behind him, still open, the warm light of the library corridor pressing softly through the gap. He looked back at Nara. She had not moved. She was watching the lanterns with that same unhurried expression, the one that held no urgency, no restlessness, no sense that time was something to be managed or spent carefully. Only attention, only the long, patient practice of witnessing. Thank you, Elias said. She glanced at him briefly. Something in her expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but close to one. Go and rest, she said. Your lantern is on the river now. It will be kept. Elias stepped through the doorway. The river disappeared behind him. The stone corridor of the library returned, cool and dim and familiar, the shelves leaning gently inward on either side, the lanterns drifting far above in the dark. He walked slowly back through the corridor, past the old books breathing in their shelves, past the high arched windows where the moon had moved further across the sky, past the reading chair where he sometimes sat in the evenings, its worn fabric holding the shape of many quiet hours. He did not sit in it tonight. Tonight he continued on, through the hall, down the passage, to the small room at the back of the library, where a narrow bed sat beneath a window. He lay down. The moonlight fell across the floor in a long, pale rectangle. The library was completely still around him, and somewhere far below, or far above, or perhaps neither, perhaps simply elsewhere in the way that some places are elsewhere without being far, the river moved on, carrying its lights, keeping them safe through the last quiet hours of the night. Elias closed his eyes and slept, and so the river moves on, carrying its lights through the last quiet hours of the night, carrying yours. Among them, you do not need to hold on to anything now. Let your thoughts drift the way lanterns drift, slowly, without effort, further from the shore. Your breathing is slowing. The room around you is still, and the river is already keeping you. Rest now. You are safe. You are held. Good night. If this story brought you some peace tonight, a like or a subscribe means more than you know. It helps this little library stay open, so there is always a story waiting whenever you need one. Sleep well.